order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for Tuesday, January the 19th. I don't have any changes to the agenda for the meeting. Do you, Ashley? No. All right, any other department head have a change to the agenda? If not, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda for the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, a quick mayor's report tonight. We hosted Transportation Commissioner John Caldwell as well as representatives from seven different counties last week. And, you know, we invited them here to discuss Highway 7 and the possible four-laning of Highway 7. This is a project that has been talked about in our community for, I don't know, 25 years now. And so it is one that it has been at least that long. We have tried for decades now to push that project forward. The longer we wait, the higher the price tag goes. And we just continue to try to sell that to both our state leaders and our federal leaders. We believe that getting a larger group together certainly gives us a larger voice in DC, especially knowing that any project we do will be multi-jurisdictional. We know we can't apply for the funds for the project. It would need to go through MDOT. So we are excited to have a transportation commissioner who is motivated to help us get this ball rolling, and we will keep pushing and we'll keep you abreast of that. I'm sure that most of you saw on social media that there was a vehicle fire on top of the parking garage this weekend. We are assessing the damage that was done, and that top floor will be closed until we make any needed repairs. We started an exciting new project today. You may have seen that around town we have little free libraries. We have 5 of them around town. We have one that's on South 18th Street Extended, one at Stone Park, one at CB Webb, one at Price Hill, and Avent Park. And the one at Avent Park is not on the road. It is back between the 2 playgrounds, and so we have not planned to restock that one right now, but we may try to find a way to get it moved closer to the street so that people know that it is there. They've been stocked with library books. We know that in this time of need, people are very much in need of food. And so we have discussed with the different book clubs that sponsor those little free libraries, and we began today converting those into little free pantries. We stocked the one at South 18th Street Extended and the one at CB Webb, and hope to have the other stocked by the end of the week. And we would encourage people that need food to please take it. Take what you need. We would encourage people that have the ability to provide food to please fill those up with canned goods when you leave the grocery store. If you don't want to go fill it up, but you brought canned goods, if you call us, we will run out front and get them from your car and be glad to stock those for you. But anyway, we encourage people to get involved. It's a great way to serve our community. The vaccination site is going well. Jimmy has been coordinating that with the Mississippi Department of Health and National Guard, and that is going well. As of yesterday, there were more appointments available in Lafayette County. I would encourage people that if you try once and there are no appointments, keep trying. Each day, as more vaccinations become available, they open up more appointments. So just because you try once in the morning and there were no appointments available, we encourage you to keep trying. We don't get a special notice of when those appointments are added or anything, so it's not feasible for us to let you know, hey, they've added more appointments, that kind of thing. So we would just encourage you to hit refresh until you can get an appointment. It's my understanding that they are vaccinating approximately 400 people a day at our Oxford National Guard. So we are very excited that that is happening. And Jimmy has been there on the scene and says it is rolling so smoothly. And there's not a long wait when you get there. You get there at your appointment time. You don't need to be there 30 minutes early or you kind of mess up the whole process. So just come when it's your time. And they have it rolling really well. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Janice, who wanted to make an announcement.
Thank you. I wanted to let my colleagues and the department heads know before you see it in the media that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term. And before you get too excited or too sad, I'll be with you for another 4.5 months. Or 5.5.
5.5.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Cutting out early.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Mayor, I'll save my speech for Janice at the.
That's right,
Yeah,
that's right, I'm with you.
I'm gonna ditto that, just make it easy. So, I am actually not running either, so.
Okay, so we have two.
So we have two aldermen who will not be seeking reelection, and that provides opportunities for other people to get involved, although I'm very sad that the two of you will not be on this board after June, very sad. I would tell the community that you can qualify to run between now and February the 6th, and you do that by visiting the city clerk's office on the first floor of City Hall. All right, with that, I will ask you to authorize the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on January 5th, 2021, and the special meeting on January 12th, 2021.
Move we authorize the approval of the minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Authorize the approval of accounts for all city departments.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Consider the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Request permission to submit the 2021-22 Section 5311 grant package for Oxford University Transit. Donna?
Yes, ma'am, it is due on February 4th, and so everyone should have had a copy to look at. There were still some documents that needed to be put in, which is just letters of support and that kind of thing, but I think everybody had everything they needed to look at, so.
Yep. Anybody have any questions?
I move we approve.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Presentation of the Oxford Fire Department Annual Report, Chief Gardner.
Good afternoon. What we have here is just a real quick rundown of what we've done this year. This first page will be a breakdown of our calls by incident type. We had 1,761 total calls, 2020. The main increase there was in medical calls, which we went from 182 in 2019 to 606 in 2020. And on the next page, we have it broken down by the day of the week and then the time of day. Our busiest time of the day is from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Our busiest day of the week would be on Wednesdays, which kind of surprises me, but
Yeah, that's weird.
it was.
Well, doctors are off.
That's what it is, doctors are off. Our slowest month would have been January, when we only had 89 calls. Our busiest month was November, where we had 201 calls. And then on the next page, you can see how it's broken down by property use. And of course, this year we had more residential calls than we did any other thing. And again, our busiest month was in November.
Is that typical? Is the busiest month usually November?
It's gone from in the summer to now. It's basically November,
Because
December.
winter's starting kind of.
Starting. And of course, with the medical calls, that was part of it this year too. You know, we had a lot of medical calls in November.
Right.
Then we get to our inspections for the year, which of course were down due to COVID. And if you can look at the breakdown. We did 223 in the month of February, and then you can tell where COVID really kicked in, and we had furloughed some people and just weren't able to get in these buildings like we usually do on a regular year. But we still did 1,118 total inspections for the year.
Wow.
And then lastly, we have our fire prevention stats. Which as far as the total number of people reached, it's way down this year just because we couldn't get into schools.
Sure.
We touched 1,015 people, where generally it's a lot more than that, but you're in all the schools, dealing with all the school kids. And then one thing that we were really proud of this year, for the Thanksgiving meals, we were able to provide 100 families with Thanksgiving meals.
That's amazing.
And then at Christmas, we were able to provide 50 families with meals, and plus 40 children in those families with gifts that were donated by people in this community. So that just says a lot about the city that we live in. And
Very cool.
so,
Well, there are a whole lot of stats here that are not necessarily the responsibility of firefighters, but they are the responsibility of public servants, and I appreciate so much that you lead that way and that all your folks are geared that way, and appreciate the community service. And I hope our community understands how blessed we are to have a fire department with trained medical personnel to respond when our ambulances take longer than they should very often.
Yes, ma'am.
So we hear on a regular basis about long waits for ambulances and ambulances that are 20 minutes out and that kind of thing. And in those situations, I can't tell you how important it is to know that the Oxford Fire Department is there to take care of people immediately. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. And as far as the meals, yes,
When
ma'am.
there's an ambulance call and the ambulance is slow, do you folks automatically go? I mean, are you notified every time there's an ambulance call?
It depends on the type call. If it's a motor vehicle wreck, heart attack, stroke, diabetic, something like that, we go to all of
You
those.
go.
And when we get the call, we're generally they let us know how far out the ambulance is.
I see.
Which could be, they may say the ambulance is responding from the hospital, or it could say ambulance is 60 minutes away.
Wow, yeah.
So it just depends.
Well, it's very helpful that you.
I wouldn't
folks
call that
do.
an ambulance,
I
60
know.
minutes away.
You know, there are times when it's a 60-minute delay.
So, quick question, once COVID subsides, hopefully later this year, are you guys planning on starting back with the, I always thought it was, I know you didn't do it every year, but the, where you go by and check people's,
Smoke detectors.
smoke detectors and stuff, because I know it helped me one time, and
Yes.
I think it's a great thing we do for the citizens.
We were planning on that, but it all just depends on COVID. I mean, like last year, we had it in the works to do it last year. Of course, we weren't gonna ask if we come in your home during COVID.
Right.
You know, but yeah, as soon as we can, we're gonna get back in houses and everything, check on smoke detectors.
Good deal.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Chief? All right, thank you very much. Public hearing and consideration of a resolution of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Oxford, Mississippi, approving the adoption and implementation of the tax increment financing plan for the Lamar, City of Oxford, Lafayette County, Mississippi, January 2021, and for related purposes. We can begin this any different ways. I think probably the best first step would be for Mr. Duras or Mr. Monty to present to us exactly what we are considering tonight, and then we'll get Steve Pittman to come up and speak.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir, welcome.
All right, for some time, we've been talking about the Lamar and related infrastructure improvements. And I'd like to take a moment to give a little bit of history of our discussions and then details about the request. In October, we wrote a letter to the city asking that the city consider $3.5 million in TIF financing to support infrastructure in connection with the project, which would include a Molly Bar roundabout, about 3.4 million, 3.3 million, a connector road through the development connecting Molly Bar to North Lamar, and then improvements on North Lamar, and that the plan allow for additional infrastructure within the development. And through meetings with the administration, the feedback we got was that was just a little bit more TIF and scope that would be willing to consider given the nature of the project. And went back and forth with discussions, and we ultimately submitted a revised request that had two options for the city to consider. Just those three roadway improvements at about $1,864,000 that would provide for the city to put capitalized interest, issuance cost, and debt service reserves, which would make about a $2.4 million TIF. Or in the alternative, we would do all of those things plus a significant amount of sidewalks in connection with the development. And at our your mid-December meeting, the feedback we got from the board unofficially was let's proceed with the $2.9 million proposal. We were here at the last board meeting. Y'all called for the hearing to be held tonight to take public comment. The notice has run in the local paper. And here we are for the city to take public comment from the citizens. The TIF plan, let me back up. At our last meeting, there was some discussion about, well, which sidewalks are we talking about specifically? And I think y'all have an exhibit in front of you that shows the scope of the sidewalks that we would propose to construct along with the other infrastructure. It's highlighted in red, takes you a significant way in front of the development on North Lamar, down coming into town, a significant piece, and then around on Molly Bar. Are there any questions about the scope that's being proposed?
So the difference in this map that we are looking at tonight and compared to the one that we looked at 2 weeks ago is it fills in this gap on Chickasaw that connects those two pieces that are,
Which map are you looking at, Mayor?
oh, I'm sorry. Exhibit D, the one that was
The one,
laid-
the one that's in, oh, this.
one that's
oh,
laid on
okay.
your, yeah,
Okay.
we didn't have
Only
this
have
one
one,
before.
yeah,
Oh, we only have one, okay.
And it also takes in the corner on Molly Bar and up North Lamar.
So, but the difference is, the developer would not be required to build the sidewalk that connects those two pieces of the Lamar on Chickasaw, and now that is there. And then, in the previous map, it came from Price Street up to this phase 2, and now you have it going the other way around the what we call three-way, which is four-way, back around to Molly Bar. Great. Just wanted to be clear on what the changes were from the last thing that we looked at. And so how do the prices break down based on those changes?
Basically, there would be about $1,865,000 for the 3 designated roadway improvements, and about,
And those are what? I just want everybody to be clear on
yes,
that.
ma'am.
Yeah, do you have anything that we could like look at that has that?
This map exhibit shows every bit of the scope.
Yeah, I was talking about the pricing part of it.
Like I was trying to make like a mini,
Yeah.
what are the pieces that we're
I do
looking
have
for?
a detailed cost estimate.
I didn't think that was up to date. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the one that's in here. Is it up to date?
In the
The only thing
tip
that wouldn't be in there would be the sidewalk that comes up North Lamar around
Okay.
Molly Bar,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
piece from Chickasaw.
All right, so, round numbers, about $1,865,000 for the 3 roadway segments that would include Molly Bar Roundabout, the connector road, to Lamar, and then roadway improvements along Lamar. Basically about $900,000 or so of sidewalks would make up the
And
difference.
when you say roadway improvements, you're along North Lamar, you're talking about sidewalks?
No sidewalks on that, just roadway and signalization, that's correct, Mike? That's correct.
But we don't have a drawing of that.
Yes, ma'am, this exhibit shows,
It's just Main Street right there.
So can you break out the roundabout, the signalization, and the connector road out of that 1.865?
we have an itemization of that. The roadway connecting North Lamar to the Chickasaw Molly Bar, 390. North Lamar improvements about 135,000, and then Molly Bar, 1,339,000 is our current estimate, for a total of $1,864,000 for those 3 components.
What was the last one you said?
The roundabout for $1,339,000.
Yeah, okay.
The connector road at 390 and improvements to North Lamar at 135.
Yes, ma'am.
So as we go forward, we could prioritize what gets done first.
Yes, sir, and tonight's consideration, assuming that the city should approve this TIF plan, it's a statement of intent. It sets the parameters, but it's a not-to-exceed amount. We would prepare and offer a development agreement, which is really where the contract between the city and the developer, where there could be, as much detail defined. The TIF plan itself calls for a priority of the monies on page 3 of the TIF plan. Bear with me. it caused the
Yeah, I think
priority.
11.
I see it.
And I think it's important, it's just, however much bonds get issued, up to 2.9, the priority would be first to the city's cost of issuance, second to require, to establish any required debt service reserve, third to reimburse those road improvements and sidewalks that we were discussing. And then, if there were any remaining funds in the issuance, the developer could receive reimbursement for any other qualified infrastructure. And based on the current estimates today, at about 2.7 million in the infrastructure and sidewalks we're talking about, it's likely there's not enough money to fully reimburse them. Because, between our last meeting and tonight, the city suggested we consider some additional sidewalks that weren't previously contemplated. And we're not asking for any more in TIF money, it's 2.9 is the number.
Okay, I'm gonna let Steve Pittman come up and talk for a minute, and then we'll have public comment.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep,
Quick
thank you,
question
Chris.
Before you leave, Chris, if I make just, I'm just making sure. So our last meeting was kind of setting this one up for a public comment. Not any difference, all we're still doing is saying our total we're ever even gonna think about is 2.9. Our next general agreement would make, we're doing this and this and this and this and this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But it seems to me, well, go ahead.
We
We
would
don't
hope,
have engineering drawings right now, I guess is what I'm looking at. It doesn't show what this is gonna exactly be, what that's gonna exactly be.
we do not, but there's some checks and balances through the process. We would hope that if the board favorably considers this, we will prepare a development agreement for consideration at the next board meeting. We've already begun work on that document. So hopefully at the next meeting, it could be considered for approval. That puts a lot of things, wheels in motion, and on Mac, the developer, and all the risk is on him to go out here and finance it separately, build all these improvements, create the taxes, and then on the back end get reimbursement for them. But that development agreement is gonna obligate him to build things to city code and spec and have city approval of the scope. So there's some checks and balances through the process that those things get worked out. I will tell you that I've been doing this 25 years, been involved with over 100 TIF projects, and rarely do you have, detailed engineering at this point in these projects.
Right, I guess I was
Too
saying.
much money to spend if you may not get,
Yes,
make a
sir.
projected.
That's right.
So, and Matt could answer this, but so I'm looking at Main Street, is that the only place, Main Street, where there will be commercial?
Yes, it'll be Main Street, commercial facing Main Street, and depending on how you perceive it, also facing Boulevard.
Okay, I just wanted to see, but none of the other roads, like, they're all just traditional neighborhood developments.
So based on what we talked about last week, which was the option 2, to do the additional sidewalks that you're talking about today, you've eliminated the 100,000 for lighting and the traffic signal on North Lamar. And is that how you compensate for being able to do the additional sidewalks without it going over 2.9?
I think we're still doing those things.
I think they're still in there on number.
We're still doing
on
them. I
C,
just-
it's all
I
included
just failed to.
on page 11, 10 and 11.
There's still the lighting in there? All right.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
is.
It's just not prioritized just yet.
Okay.
Right.
Look at the road. If you look at the numbers where they are now, they're closer to 3.1, 3.15 in total budget. Because the numbers he just gave us was 2.7 just for construction. That doesn't include the 400,000 in legal fees and interest,
Okay.
et cetera.
He was just talking
So if you look at
All right.
the big numbers, we're looking at 3.165.
But all those other things that I just mentioned are still part of this.
Yes, ma'am.
I think also, Janice, we're gonna have, I talked to Mac about this today, and I realized that the sidewalks are not all gonna be curb and gutter sidewalks. I mean, it's a lot more expensive to have to do that. However, there's gonna have to be parts of them on Chickasaw and other areas that are gonna have to be curb and gutter because of drainage and everything else. And I think we need to kind of know a little bit, if nothing else from our engineers,
Right.
to figure out where that's gonna have to be, because, before we enter into this, we don't need just a path up a road. I mean, we gotta make sure it's an actual sidewalk.
Yeah, you're right, John, because just sidewalks a lot of times could really make the drainage situation worse.
Well, and when
And
you
Max the one brought that up.
when you look at that on North Lamar, when you look at the sidewalks there, that's already a mixed bag of this person put in sidewalks, this one only has one curb cut, this one has their full parking lot where you can turn in and out at any angle. You know, I think that is something that if the board decides to go forward, would want to have a whole lot of detail on. I think that over the next 15 years, all of North Lamar will reinvent itself. And we will need to provide better infrastructure all the way down North Lamar, whether that's 3 lanes or 4 lanes, I don't know. We do have the right of way available there to be able to accommodate whatever growth we determine we need. And we hope that the need is there for us to make those infrastructure improvements. But what I wouldn't want to do is commit to putting sidewalks down North Lamar, and then we decide 10 years from now, okay, we gotta make a 3rd lane, a turn lane, or whatever we decide we need to do, and we're tearing up sidewalks that the taxpayers hadn't even paid you back for yet. You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's a concern to me, that I want us to be thinking, you know, it was asked at the last meeting, why would we do a roundabout? Do we have a traffic study that says you need a roundabout today? My understanding is it does not say that we need one today, but we would be very short-sighted and planning very poorly for our community if we weren't looking ahead to say, how do we put infrastructure in place that accommodates how, you know, the future growth that we think is coming. So I think the same thing about the sidewalks, but maybe in reverse, we don't put them there because, you know, I don't know what we're gonna do to that road. And even though MAC is paying for it on the front end, the taxpayers are paying them back, and they don't wanna pay for it twice. We don't want to pay for it once now and then have to figure out what that road's gonna be. So that would be my only concern on those North Lamar sidewalks. I don't think that the others all the way around and down Chickasaw fall in that category at all, but on North Lamar, just hate to see us piece something together that we change, but I would need engineers to direct on that. I don't want you or the taxpayers to do a lot of work that's not, you know, fairly long-term.
So back to Rick's original statement, so we could still approve a maximum of $2.9 million and still go back and figure out what we agree on.
I think we could. I thought in our previous TIF
Oh, that's
that
what we
we've
just
done, I mean, I hadn't had a whole lot of experience in this, but in our last one, I thought that we had a pretty strict menu. You did it, Chris. I don't know. I mean, didn't we have, I mean, we knew when we were at this point what we were committing to we could take any number and say we're good with not going over, and I don't think that anybody has a set number, but what, do we not determine these are the improvements we want to see included and then decide a number? Instead, it just seems like we're kind of doing it backwards than how we've done it before. Like, these are the things we want to see included, what that costs is what we want to do a TIF on, but maybe I'm just not remembering it correctly.
Well, in the previous TIF, there was a component of the overall project and infrastructure that was pretty well known and had a scope, which were the roundabouts.
Right.
But there's additional TIF authority in that project to cover other infrastructure within the development that was generally stated in nature and is infrastructure that, you know, will be built in the future and be reimbursable in the future. So that one's a little bit different than this particular conversation, you know, and from my experience, I'll tell you that there's a pretty high level of detail as it relates to the exhibits we're offering and the priority in the plan and this level of discussion. And in the near term, you know, Mac's gonna have to come back to City Hall and get building permits and have review processes for any and everything that he does. And so City Hall is gonna have an opportunity to review scope and make approvals where, like y'all are talking about, a little wider sidewalk or curb one ought to go here and something different ought to go there in the short term. I really can't help you know, where we are today in the
Sure.
process and what y'all might decide about widening Lamar or things.
Yeah, I just, I mean, that just may be a portion that we take out, it's not really in the scope of that project, but I would wanna hear from engineers to know, I mean, I'm not the one to make that decision, but, does anybody have anything else for Chris? I want Steve Pittman to come up and address.
One
Go
thing,
back. Go
one
ahead.
thing, time-wise, you know, if you were to get approved moving forward, how long are we looking on this project as a whole?
I'll defer to Mac on that.
Before you get to Mac, going back to, I mean, what he just said, the last one, we were not as specific at all. We said, we're gonna do these 3 roundabouts, and then there's this pot left. If you save X amount on the roundabouts, you can use it on infrastructure. It's still public use. This one, we've got pretty much nailed down. You're gonna do click, 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 and click, on the number 3, part C.
Mac?
Mac?
And on timeline, we would like to get the Main Street of Lamar started as soon as possible, now, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. The roundabout, I think we could start it's designed in 2 dimensions right now, and we need to work on some of the grading, so the engineers have some work yet to do there, and we would aim to do it during a time of the year when it's least impactful to the traffic.
Sidewalk?
Right after that,
Okay.
second half of this year.
Okay.
What are your prospects, Matt, for commercial development? I mean, that's gonna be the biggest generator of revenue, tax revenue.
It certainly is, and prior to the unique market conditions that we're in, of course, everyone that wants to be doing business in Oxford previous to the pandemic was
Yeah.
quick service restaurants and businesses looking to relocate here. Currently, we have medical and office. Restaurants are still kind of reeling, as you all have discussed in every meeting since March 16th. I am certainly motivated to accommodate that type of use in Lamar, but at this point, it's office and medical.
Okay. But the Lamar is not ready yet for,
Right, and we need
Yeah.
a road there to present that real estate product to the market.
And Mayor, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think it's important for the public to appreciate that with this approval and ultimately a development agreement, Mac's got to go take 100% of the financial risk to do all this, and only if he delivers the successful project with adequate tax revenue, then will he come back to City Hall and ask for the bonds to be issued.
and we understand
Yeah.
that, but you know, citizens look at it in a slightly different way. They look at it like this development is gonna happen. May happen a little slower without the TIF, but then there'll be tax revenue that can be used for other things in the city.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's just a different perspective if you're just an ordinary taxpayer from being the developer.
I appreciate that, and that's a great point, Ms. Antonelli, that you bring up, because I've known Mac for a long time, and when he started through the planning process, he called me and said, hey, I want to hire you, help me get a TIF, save some of my development costs. And we met many times and talked about scope, and he said, you know, with what the city's asked me to do and where we are, I think Public Improvement District, PID, let's talk to the city about a PID. And we've not, my October 29th letter addressed that and asked for that consideration, but we've made no formal request. But I'm taking you back 2 years ago. And he said, you know, we evaluated TIF and whether or not it was reasonable, appropriate, the right thing to come ask. And he said, let's do PID. And I think you all know in the PID process, that's additional assessments that go on the property over and above the normal taxes that we're paying back for infrastructure. And as the project moved forward, I think his meetings and discussions with City Hall that gave rise to the roundabout that was not previously contemplated is why we're here talking about TIF. And normally on a TIF scenario, you know, I'm dealing with developers who are in the planning stages, not actually out there, you know, turning dirt and doing things. But that's the reason why we're here at this time talking about TIF, and I think that creates a different scenario.
If you look at your grid that is laying in front of you, I don't know what his tax revenue is right now,
$8,900 for city taxes annually at the moment.
So on year 3, there's a surplus of 593 that will be coming to the city instead of the, whatever he's paying at this time. Sorry, John, just reading across. On year 10, I mean, if you took a $2.9 million and invested it, I'm just looking at money terms, most of the time your investment analysts will say, you look at trying to double that in 10 years or so. That's a very conservative figure. On this one, on 10 years, 2.9 in, I mean, you've $8.2 million, you've more than doubled,
Yeah.
but you don't have any risk until you build it. I mean, I kind of look at it sometimes as an investment into our city. I mean, we did the same thing when we sold Baptist Hospital, and we took that money and put it aside.
Right.
And it made X amount. Well, we're investing this amount into this development with pretty much no risk until he makes it happen. And you start reaping the benefits on year 3 at $593,000. With a total benefit of year 10 at 8.2 million.
Yeah.
Chris, you should've just got Rick stand up there for you.
It's just an investment side that I look at instead of looking at, okay, it's this infrastructure, it's this, we're gonna spend this. Well, Mac's spending it until he gets the tax revenue up to where we're actually making a lot more than what you're making now. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that you're looking longer term than I am.
Well, I mean, even year 3, you're instead of making whatever I can't remember your number, I'm sorry, the taxes that you're making now,
$12,000 a year.
8,900.
8,900 on year 3, after he's made after we've made bond payments, you're $500,000 more a year.
Right.
I'd like to close with one thing too. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, all across the state, in small communities, large communities, and what y'all are doing here, assuming that this finds favor with the board, you're really investing in the vast majority of pure public infrastructure that the general public all have access to. A lot of the TIFs we work on throughout the state are in communities that are not quite as vibrant as Oxford. With, you know, you've got a lot of attention here from the development community and scope and quality, and most of the TIFs we work on are taking a developer's $20 million project and finding a way to shave $2 or $3, $4 million of cost off their project to make it feasible. Max bought this property, he's developing this project. It's about leveraging these future tax dollars to get a lot more purely public infrastructure here, and stuff he didn't contemplate on the roundabout, and then on this current plan we're talking about, you know, up to $900,000 or so in more sidewalks that he otherwise wouldn't be looking at doing. So with that said, Mayor,
Okay, Steve Pittman, you'd come
So
up.
while Steve's coming up, I just gotta ask a
Steve, don't
question.
even stand up. Yeah, made him stand
Yeah, no,
up
go
4
ahead, it's
times,
fine.
and y'all would
So,
keep going. So.
I think one of the issues that we all had a while back, and it's starting to it's coming through to me now, but was, you know, we didn't wanna have to pay for a lot of things like Main Street and the lighting and these different things, but looking at the roundabout and looking at the commercial, Main Street's, I guess that's why it's got to be one of the first things, even though that's what you're talking about that, but I mean, that's something I think that we really had a problem with, is paying for the quote, Main Street. I mean, is that basically what, am I correct there?
well,
I mean, the roundabout, we don't really need a roundabout unless you got Main Street.
well, and Main Street really is gonna be the major revenue driver that helps pay bonds back and helps, you know, grow the
Yeah.
city's budget. I mean, I think everyone would want that as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve?
Mayor and Board, again, Steve Pittman, I'm your financial advisor. I assist you and give you advice on typically pure debt issuance. This is related to debt issuance, but we're not there yet. But Bart and Mayor and I decided that it was appropriate that I be here and make a few comments, and then more importantly, be available to answer questions, much like Chris did from the developer side. Like Chris, I've seen these deals around the state in many cities, and ultimately it becomes a judgment call of the governing body of the city, not only whether to participate in a TIF and the size of the TIF that the city would like to do, would agree to do. And ultimately it becomes a question of, does this development offer the city something that the city wants, and to worth incentivizing that developer to do that? And on Sisk Avenue, ultimately it was decided that those roundabouts were needed, that the city needed the roundabouts. And so that TIF was done, the development agreement was entered into, and the bonds were issued because the city wanted those improvements. And so that's, you know, the approach that most cities take, although I must say that most TIFs are done in a community that desperately wants some retail development, whether it's a new box store, whether it's a new shopping center, and the like, that's going to produce new sales tax. And so the city would choose to participate to assist the developer, shaving off some of his cost ultimately with a part of those new revenues. You know, that's just kind of a general commentary on the use of TIFs as an incentive to get something that a city wants. And then next I would say, and Chris mentioned this, I see there are more steps than this, but the three important steps that the city board governing body would have to vote on is adopting a TIF plan, which is before you tonight. And this is essentially a parameters, sort of outer limits of what the city would agree to do, $2.9 million. And then at the bottom of page 3 and top of 4 are the list of things, and then the priority of the list of things that any TIF bond revenues proceeds would be used to pay for. The second step, and if you adopt this TIF plan tonight, you still have to consider and adopt a development plan that can be as specific as the city wants it to be in terms of infrastructure and in terms of timing and in terms of reimbursement. All of those things can be covered in a development plan. And even though Chris said that, you know, perhaps if we adopt this tonight, we could consider the development plan at your meeting in February, I'm not so sure that that would give the city enough time, but it certainly could be considered in fairly quick due course. But I'm just not sure that 2 weeks, frankly, is enough. And then the third step is, once the project is built and the revenues are coming in, that's when I come in and do an analysis of the revenues and then make a suggestion, a recommendation to the city of the timing and the size of the bond issue, up to $2.9 million. And so you've got two additional kind of bites at the apple on this type project.
So the amount that we're committing to, we do a broader umbrella tonight, but that can be adjusted once you see actually what different things come in at,
That's
is what
correct.
you're saying. And is there anything, anything that we need to be aware of or consider that you see as our advisor? I know we've heard a lot from Mac's advisor, who I trust and know, but is there anything else that you think that we need to be aware of? Does this look like your typical TIF?
You know, it does, and the not to exceed amount ultimately becomes a judgment call of the city. I've seen developers come in with a high number request, we want this as a not to exceed, and then after discussions, either with the board or with the administration, the decision based on what they say they're gonna build, you know, even though they would want $5 million, for example, 2.9 or some lower number is the more reasonable number. And so, you know, is 2.9 the exact correct number? I don't know, but I think it's pretty close. If the city wants the Molly Bar roundabout and Main Street, John.
A couple of things. One, if the city were to do this project on their own and issue bonds, it would count towards our bond capacity, correct?
That's correct.
And if the TIF, it does not count towards our bond capacity.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's one thing to consider. In each year, we would have a bond payment if the city were to issue the bonds.
That's correct.
So, okay, thank you.
When our previous financial advisor, you know, I've been around for a long time, so I remember all these things that other people don't. But we had our initial request that I remember for a TIF was for Jackson Avenue expansion, and we found that that wasn't needed. Then we had another request, and I can't remember exactly who it was from, but our previous financial advisor really gave us a talking to and concluded that Oxford doesn't need to do this. We're not the kind of city that is desperate for development, and we feel that we have to engage in a TIF in order to get any kind of development, whether it be residential or commercial. And I keep remembering him telling us that. And also we're not looking at any redevelopment. This is new development that he said was gonna happen, and it was happening at a pretty quick pace then, and it's even quicker now. So I'm just trying to look at this big picture about a TIF, and it's just bothering me a bit.
Well, I mean, I won't give you that same talking to, but I mean, Demery Grubbs is who you're
Yes.
referring to, and he's right. I mean, but that becomes, you know, kind of, I don't mean to be flippant like this, but it becomes, do you bluff and say, okay, you're gonna do it anyway? And maybe he does. I don't know. But does this encourage him to do more than what he had originally planned to do? I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
And Dr.
That's
Aaron,
right.
I think I remember the one, and your concerns, I think they're really good policy issues. I think the one that you're remembering is the one at Vieux Carré. It was across from the Chancery Courthouse, and there was discussion about maybe creating new entrance onto Jefferson. It was all tied into our thinking about maybe buying that parking lot before we had. And it was nearly all private development in the downtown area that people were fighting over to develop. And I don't know if those concerns are all that different in this case, but I think that's the one you're remembering.
It may be. I really don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember his lecture.
Demery could give a good lecture.
Yeah.
I've had a few of those. Any other questions for Steve? You do have in front of you an email from Dick Dickerson, who I know is here and who spoke at our last public hearing. Wanted you to know, Dick, that everybody has a copy of that at their place, and that will be submitted into our minutes as well. Thank you. And just wanted to give an opportunity for anyone else, as we've advertised as a public hearing. We welcome anyone to give us their opinions or ask questions. If there's anybody that would like to come forward, we welcome you. Okay, so where do we go from here?
At this point in the game, I would make a motion to approve the 2.9 TIF proposal we've got in front of us.
right, any comments or questions?
Well, I just want to be clear again that we still will be able to prioritize this, and this is still a maximum amount that we're approving.
Okay,
Is that correct?
That's me.
So it's a maximum amount, which means if we take some stuff out of here, like the North Lamar sidewalks, that it can be less? Or does that mean that he can spend the remainder on something else? I want to be clear on what that means.
I think that comes out in that detailed development plan.
Right, I think this is the max we're gonna go, period. And when we get down to the development plan, at that point, you'll say, these are the projects we're going to do.
Okay, so it can wind up
If
being
I'm
less than,
I got three
it
lists.
can wind up being less than 2.9.
Yes, it could. That's my understanding.
is that right,
Is that
Steve?
correct?
I had three yes behind me.
That's exactly correct, but more importantly, when the project is complete, meaning the tax revenue project, the project that's producing the new revenue, if the new revenue does not support 2.9 million, doesn't matter if he built a sidewalk in Oxford. If it doesn't support $2.9 million, then the city is not going to issue, is only going to issue the amount that the new tax revenue supports. And if that's $1.5 million, that's all he gets.
I just want some, protection for if, and also if there's parts that, like the mayor said, that North Lamar improvement, we just may want to take that out.
Sure.
Well, after we talk to an engineer, I mean, I don't have the expertise to say it needs to come out, but
Yeah, I just don't,
yeah.
until we look at that and see what that looks like and what a future road plan looks like, that's one I wouldn't want to spend the money on twice. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Request permission to apply for a hazard mitigation grant in the amount of $900,000 for the Bailey Branch Flooding and Erosion Project. The city would be responsible for a 25% match of $225,000 if the grant is awarded. Jimmy?
Yes, hazard mitigation money has opened up from the past disasters over this year, and I went to our engineering department and said, okay, what would you like to see done? And these were the projects that came up with, was the Bailey Branch project, and then the 2 additional projects behind that one.
All right, are there any questions?
I make a motion, we apply.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Request permission to apply for a hazard mitigation grant in the amount of $498,000 for the Maplewood Cove Flooding and Erosion Control Project.
So moved.
All right, the city would be responsible for 25% of the match, which is $124,500. Right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Must be in Bailey's Ward.
Request permission to apply for a hazard mitigation grant in the amount of an estimated $98,000 for the stream monitoring early warning system project. City would be responsible for the 25% match of $24,500 if the grant is awarded.
What is that, Jimmy?
We would put in place, I've been working with Steve Brunton, it's actually his project. We'd put in stream monitors in place where we could actually track the rise in the streams around the city and see in real time if we were gonna have street flooding or if it was gonna cause a drainage, stormwater backup issue.
That would be most useful.
It would be
Yes, ma'am,
most
it
useful.
would.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Jimmy, stick with us for discussing COVID-19, current restrictions and guidelines, and the current executive orders. As of today, we have 181 hospital beds that are manned. 51 of those were occupied by COVID patients. There were 22 beds available at the hospital today. In the ICU at Baptist Hospital, they have 24 manned beds. We had 11 folks, adult age, with COVID in ICU with 4 beds available, and I'll say that that is the least number of ICU beds I've seen available the whole time we've been tracking this. And that's probably the most, I'd have to go back and check for sure, but I think that's the highest number of ICU patients
It is.
that we have seen as well. But Jimmy, you want to go over some other numbers?
Yes, you've got the chart for a breakdown for the past 2 weeks. today's numbers, the state reported 1,193 new cases with 51 new deaths. For Lafayette County, we're now standing at 4,991 cases, and that's an increase of 25 today. Our active cases for today are 400 active cases on the list, and we've had a total of 93 deaths total. We've seen an increase over the past week or so, and now I think we're starting to see a drop. Our active case numbers are actually starting to drop. Over the past couple of days, they've been around 450, 460 in that area. So the active cases are starting to drop, and as you see, our daily average for our 7-day average is 35.4. We're sitting at 28th in the state. Our incident rate is 65.6 per 100,000, where our highest county in the state is Coahoma County now, and they're sitting at 155 cases per 100,000. So our efforts are making a difference with the mask and everything, and I think maybe we may be on the back end of this spike. We're starting to see the numbers, like I said, over the past couple of days starting to drop.
Jimmy, how long do you think it's gonna take before we see the effect of vaccine?
I'm hearing just anecdotal that they're already seeing the effect in some of the larger areas down in Jackson, that the numbers are starting to come down, and they're attributing that to the vaccinations and everything. So I think we could probably say that here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'd probably be able to point directly at. The one thing though I want to caution, all the 400 shots we are giving at the site, or that the state's giving at the site, are not all the Fayette County residents. Those people are coming from all over North Mississippi.
Right, yeah.
Well, I wish it was only from Mississippi. Mississippi is a
we've
state
actually
that's
had
not limited to
some
people just from
from
Mississippi.
Tennessee and Arkansas make their way in also. But there are sites all over North Mississippi, so, you know, we're getting a lot of our population, but we can't expect all 400 per day is from
That's right.
Lafayette County.
What about the nursing homes in Lafayette County?
I have not specifically, I do not have any information on that. They're being handled through CVS and Walgreens separately.
I know the Blake got theirs on Monday.
They did? Oh, okay.
They did do, like, I saw in the paper that the veterans home was getting,
I knew that they had done the
That they
veterans
have
home.
sent to all, I just can't confirm it for sure, but I have been told
that what?
that they had covered all of the long-term care facilities, but
that's
I don't have confirmation of that.
Right, since that's a totally different system, and it's not even really coming through the health department per se, that we don't get that update.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jimmy? Any questions regarding our COVID policies? We are still following the governor's executive order. The only thing that we are mandating that is different than the governor's order is our group gathering sizes, where we're still 10 inside and 25 outside. Are there any changes that anybody would like to consider or propose? Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Next on our agenda is to discuss and consider a mask policy for walkers at the Coach Howell Activity Center. Alderman Addy brought this up at the last meeting, so I'll turn it over to him.
I had asked that we consider having a certain time of the day, like 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, where they could walk without mask. Had some people that were actually watching the pickleball players, and they were like, they're not wearing masks. It's sometimes hard for us to walk and wear a mask, maybe breathing. So they've asked if they could have a certain time, maybe 1 to 2 or something like that, which would be a time for them to walk without mask.
I'm really opposed to that. I think the masks serve a purpose on that track, and by, you know, saying you don't have to do it during a certain hour, it really shouldn't be a choice in a public building like that where people walk together. The pickleball players are pretty far apart. They're on different sides of the court, and they're separated when there's 4 of them. The courts are separated by actual physical barriers. So I'm not going to vote for doing this. Besides, I think it's going to be a nuisance for the people at the Howell Center to try to do that kind of scheduling.
I think if you look at, you know, this is the block of time. It's 1 to 2 or whatever their time frame is. I know they schedule them every hour.
What's the last walking time of the day? What time do they close the track?
Do they, is it a one-way walk?
It's one way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Seth, what are the hours that it's available for walking right now?
9 to 4 on each hour.
Yeah, it's on the
The
hour.
most used times for walking is in the morning, so it'll be the early, the 9 to 12 hours.
That's what I was just thinking, if you just made the last 2 hours of the day non-masked, then nobody else is in there immediately following that, because it's closed at 4, nobody's gonna be there till the next morning.
Well, somebody at the center just told me that the busiest hour is the last hour of the day. Is that right?
I typically try to go over at the end of the day and look at things, look at numbers. I'm not saying they're wrong, but that's not what I've seen when I've been over
Okay,
there. But I can get those numbers to you tomorrow, Ms. Janice. I can get a breakdown for you.
that's all right, I'm not gonna vote for it anyway, whatever the numbers are. I think it's just ridiculous. If we were not under the governor's order and we said that the grocery stores had to have people wearing masks, and they asked us if there could be an hour when Kroger could have people in there without masks, we would say no, because masks are serving a purpose. It's not just to put a mask on, you know, it's protecting other people who are there with you. And on the track, I'm on that track 4 or 5 times a week, and when people pass you, sometimes they're 3 abreast, that it's really risky. They're breathing heavy and they're breathing on you. So I'm opposed to it, but it's up to the board.
Also, I agree with Janice, because I feel the same way about what. Just a few, if the vaccine is here, give us a few more weeks,
Yeah,
month, probably, you can do it.
Now look at, you've got your gyms wide open without masks, I mean, and they're exercising. We're saying you don't have to use a mask to exercise there. You don't have to use a mask to exercise downstairs on the pickleball court, but some of the people that are having problems, this is what somebody's asked. We have problems wearing a mask and exercising. I think, I don't have a problem asking. I'll make a motion to go mask without for the last, when you suggested 2 hours.
If that's not their busiest time of the day.
If that's not the busiest time of day, correct?
I mean, we don't anymore at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so your motion is from 2 to 4, that masks not be required on the walking track.
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I mean, y'all both make really good points. I mean, Janice is exactly right. It's a public building, you know, it's not like it's not a private gym where people, you know, it is a city-owned building.
And John, even in a private gym, the treadmills are far apart. People are walking, they're not walking next to each other and passing each other.
But you're making a point to come at a time when they know this is what's happening.
Well, and people need
It
to
is
be
a
able to
choice.
go when it's convenient for them.
Okay, so we've got a motion and second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, so that passes 4 to 3. All right, next, consider request to continue free parking in the downtown area for Townie Tuesdays. Matt Davis is here. We have had Townie Tuesday free parking that has gone over well, and I know that the Downtown Parking Commission was interested in us extending that because they've had positive feedback.
We actually had just a request just to kind of ask from one of our commissioners to see if the board would like to extend that. We did not get a duration, whether it be a month. What they just kind of want to see what the board's thought was. It went over really well during the holiday period. Had a little kind of break-in period, people getting used to it. We had a few people kind of hear that the entire month was free, and so we
Right.
can deal with that. But
It's not.
that's
Tuesdays.
fine. But they wanted to just kind of ask, see what the board's thoughts were about maybe extending that.
Well,
Like I
think
said,
it's another way for us to help our small businesses downtown and to provide parking outside their front doors. I do think that we ought to at least set a date that we'll consider it again. I mean, so that people know that, you know, we'll reconsider it at our maybe second meeting in March, or what do y'all?
I'd say our second, which is March 16th, so go till March 17th.
That's spring break.
Spring break.
So for
We
sure
still
go
got a
through
meeting,
that
don't
week. We'll be begging people to come, so let's
Why don't we go
through that week.
the first meeting in April? Let's give it
Okay,
all of
that's fine.
February, March.
Yeah,
I mean, we've
that's
had,
great. I just
we
want us
had
to
great
have a
feedback
time
on
to-
it.
Yeah.
Our clients loved it.
Wonderful. Well, that's what we want. Any way that we can help our small businesses, I think that's what we need to be doing right now.
go to-
So is there a motion, Jason?
Yeah, to go to April 6th.
I'll
Okay.
second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And I am going to turn the meeting over to Jason Bailey. I probably should have said this at the beginning, but my son is playing in his last high school soccer game, and it is senior night, and I will not be the only kid with a parent not on the field. So I'm leaving right now because mom duty sometimes has to trump what I'm doing. So I'm gonna turn it over to our Mayor Pro Tem, Jason Bailey, and he's gonna take it from here.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Good luck. Go Chargers.
Go Chargers.
You wanna slide him the gavel?
I guess so.
So you throw it at you?
Yeah. All right, so number 16, we're gonna request permission to advertise for a reverse auction for a vacuum jet truck for Oxford Utility Water and Sewer Department. Rob?
Yes, this item was considered and approved back in February, but due to the pandemic, we kind of shut down that purchasing, and now we've turned over a new fiscal year, and Bart and I thought it best to bring it back to you for consideration again, since we're in this year's budget. It was approved in this year's budget and last year's budget, so I'm just asking to get that started. It's about a 10 to 12 month process to get that truck purchased and built, but we'd like to put out the specs on the auction website.
So moved.
And,
Second.
All in favor?
thank you.
Opposed, thank you. Number 17 is to request permission to accept the donation of 2 ballistic and stab-proof vests for Brady's K-9 fund for the benefit of Oxford Police Department K-9 unit. Major?
Hey, the department requesting and receiving donations for the vest from Brady's vest fund, K-9 fund. This go toward the 2 K-9s we have. There'll be no charge to the city. The vest is valued at $1,500.
Okay.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Number 18, consider a resolution of the mayor and board of aldermen requesting that alcohol beverages commission extend the hours for the alcohol sales to 11 p.m. on Valentine's Day, Sunday, February 14th, 2021.
I think we've always done this on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, when it falls on a Sunday.
Yeah, I move we approve it.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Request approval for the final plat amendment for case number 2709. It's the Woodland Hill subdivisions, lot 22, 23, and 24, for the property located at 301 and 311 Longest, being further identified as PPIN 5342 and 5350. Great.
Yes, sir. This report pertains to a request to amend lot lines on 2 adjoining lots of a final plat originally approved in 1953. The subject property is located in the Woodland Hills subdivision along the north side of Longest Road and west side of Eagle Springs Road. 2 single-family homes exist on these lots. This amendment will record new lot lines from lots 22 and 24, resulting in the elimination of lot 23. New lot 22 will measure approximately 0.644 of an acre, and lot 24 will measure approximately just over half an acre as well. As of the date of this report, planning staff has not received any questions or complaints from the public or other property owners in the subdivision. At the December Planning Commission meeting, Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the requested plat amendment. Staff recommends approval of the request with the 2 conditions stated in your report.
Okay.
I move we approve, especially since both of the lots, basically, the half lots of 23 are owned by the people on both sides.
Okay.
So I move we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Second reading and public hearing for the proposed ordinance for case number 2704 to amend Articles 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the City of Oxford Land Development Code. Ben?
It's a second reading. We have not received any comments since our first reading. I don't know if there's anybody in here that would like to make any formal comment.
Okay, any public comments? Okay, hear none. Wait for the third reading.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Rihanna, consider change order number 6 for the Maloof construction regarding contract time and no additional cost for the wastewater treatment plant flow equalization project.
Yes, thank you. This is related to the issues we had with our joint sealant that we discussed in December. We completed our test strips and we found a product that works. It is adhering to the basin floor, it's not tearing, it's not separating, and it can be applied quickly over the existing joints. So it's kind of going to be a third layer of protection. The issue with installation is that it's weather dependent. So what we would like to do is change our method of measuring contract time to one of the methods that MDOT uses. It's based on more weather. So they're charged less time in the cold months when there typically are not as many days to work. They're charged more time later when it warms up, but it does still give us a finite time period to get this work completed so that we can wrap this project up. So we would like to change the method of measurement of contract time. In this request is also 35 days of additional time for COVID-related issues. The contractor noted that they had shipping delays, still struggling. They also have had some quarantines of staff and all of the issues that we've discussed and experienced in the city. So they are also asking for those 35 days. There is zero cost to the city for this new product to be installed in the joints, and the manufacturer of the joint sealant has affirmed that it does not affect the warranty for the products that are used, so they will still honor the warranty. It's the same manufacturer as the original joint sealant.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Consider a reduction of the bond for the subdivision known as Lot 10 Stone Subdivision.
Yes, this is a 2-lot subdivision, and the property owners, is a little different than our normal subdivisions, but the 2 property owners had to provide a bond for the infrastructure. So a bond had to be provided for sewer, stormwater, sidewalk, and water. They've completed many of these items, and so they're asking to reduce this bond. As we've discussed before, bonds are required on an annual basis, and the cost of the bond is based on the value that has to be bonded. So we would like to reduce this. We know that sidewalk is not completed, so we'll still have that bond to ensure that that infrastructure is completed.
Okay.
I move that we approve it.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Request permission to advertise for phase 1 of Goose Creek Sewer Force Main Redemption Project.
Yes,
Or
this is our project. We've been looking at this now for a couple of years. Our sewer force main that runs from our Anderson lift station all the way across to Old Taylor Road through campus. We've had multiple breaks, multiple sewer bypasses. We hired David Daniels last year to investigate the calls. We've determined that it's an issue when the pumps activate and deactivate and all of that sewer in the line. We went and found some of the best in the business to help us come up with some ideas. This phase 1 is to install a kind of a bladder system inside the lift station that kind of helps absorb that shock, and so that we want to do this for phase 1. It has been budgeted in the current budget, so there are funds available for this project, and we'd like to advertise.
Okay, I move we grant the request, grant permission to advertise.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Consider change order number 6 for AS4A construction for the North Lamar Pocket Park. Mark.
I promised at the last meeting that change order 5 would be the last, but I'd left off the credit. So this is the last, change order 6 for the Pocket Park. It's a deduction of $1,050 for a delay in the completion date. Just want to let everybody know the park is now open and ready for public use, and this last change order will close out the contract with AS4A. Except for a few small punch list items, and the city has officially taken over maintenance for the park. And just like to publicly say, the contractors have been great to work with, and subs, and we just encourage the public to use the park and enjoy it.
Well, thank you for your work on it.
Motion made.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consider a resolution for the mayor and the board of aldermen of the city of Oxford, Mississippi in support of amendment HB 1584 of the 2014 regular session of the Mississippi Legislature as it relates to the Oxford Municipal Reserve and Trust Fund. Pope.
Yeah, the Oxford Municipal Reserve and Trust Fund is governed by a local private. The local private, last year, we asked the legislature to allow it to invest its funds in accordance with the Mississippi Uniform Prudent Investor Act instead of TERS. There's just a very small difference related to the bond ratings of shares within bonds. And, they made that change last year, but they left it out on the second page of the local and private, where we were asked to send another resolution down to fix that mistake.
All right. Do I have approval to do that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Consider executive session. Do we have anything? All right.
So moved.
Yeah, we got it.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank y'all.